Commander Zek Theta stood in the briefing room of the Galactic Council Intelligence Division. The walls showed stars and planets in real time, a reminder of how vast the galaxy was. His forearms rested calmly at his sides as his superior officer, Director Voss, pulled up a holographic display. "Your next assignment," Voss said, his voice carrying the clicking sounds of their native language. The humans. Zek Theta's orange eyes narrowed slightly. He had heard of humans. They were new to space travel, only achieving faster-than-light technology 40 years ago. Most species took centuries to earn even minor attention from the Council. Humans were babies in the cosmic scale. What threat could they possibly pose? Zek Theta asked. His record was perfect. In his 50 cycles of service, he had spied on the warrior clans of Drax Prime, infiltrated the hive minds of the Collective, and even survived 3 months among the carnivorous hunters of the Void. Each mission had provided valuable intelligence that kept the Council's peace intact. They are fighting the Kelmar hegemony over border territories, Voss explained. 3 planets in the Kepler system. The Council wants to know their military capabilities. Standard observation, nothing more. Zek Theta's neck spines relaxed. The Kelmar were known for crushing smaller civilizations. This would likely be a short assignment. He would watch the humans lose, document their weapons and tactics, and return home within a few weeks. "I'll need biomasking technology," Zek Theta said. His species, the Vraxians, stood 7 feet tall with scaled skin that changed color with emotion. Humans, from what he had studied, were smaller and had soft, vulnerable skin. "Already prepared," Voss replied, sliding a small device across the table. "This will make you appear as a human military advisor from their northern European region. Your cover identity is Colonel Eric Sanderson, an allied observer from their United Earth Forces." Zek Theta picked up the device. It was no bigger than his thumb claw. "What about their sleep requirements?" "My reports indicate they lose consciousness for 8 hours every rotation." "That won't affect you," Voss said with what passed for a smile among their kind. "Your natural rest stasis every 10 days should be sufficient. If anything, their constant need for sleep will make them easier to observe. They'll be vulnerable 1/3 of every day." Zek Theta attached the biomasker to his chest. His scales shimmered and began to change. Within seconds, he appeared human. Pale skin, yellow hair, blue eyes. The transformation was perfect, down to the strange patches of hair humans grew on their faces. "The 437th Infantry Regiment," Voss continued, "stationed on Kepler 442b. They're expecting you in 3 days. Document everything. Weapons, tactics, morale, weaknesses. The Council wants to know if humanity will be a future problem or just another failed species." 3 days later, Zek Theta arrived at Firebase Echo on Kepler 442b. The planet was harsh. Red soil, thin atmosphere that required breathing assistance, and temperatures that swung wildly between day and night. The human base was unimpressive. Prefabricated structures that looked like they could blow away in a strong wind, sandbags stacked around defensive positions, and vehicles that still used wheels instead of hover technology. Colonel Sanderson, a human, approached him. She was small even for her species, with dark skin and hair tied back in a tight knot. "I'm Captain Sarah Williams, commanding officer of the 437th. Welcome to the edge of nowhere." Zek Theta shook her hand, careful not to squeeze too hard. Humans had fragile bones. "Thank you, Captain. I'm here to observe and learn." Williams laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Well, you'll learn that we're holding this position with spit, prayers, and pure stubbornness. The Kelmar probe our defenses every few days. Lost 3 people last week." She led him through the base. Zek Theta counted only 200 soldiers. His research showed the Kelmar typically attacked with forces of at least 1,000. The math didn't make sense. "Your soldiers," Zek Theta observed. "Many of them appear tired." "Tired?" Williams snorted. "Colonel, we've been on high alert for 3 weeks. Double shifts for everyone. My people are running on 4 hours of sleep a night if they're lucky." This confirmed Zek Theta's assumptions. Sleep deprivation would make them weak. He watched soldiers moving around the base. They drank a dark liquid from metal cups. Coffee, his briefing had called it. A mild stimulant that humans seemed addicted to. Many had dark circles under their eyes. Some were sleeping while standing up, leaning against walls. That night, Zek Theta began his first formal observation. He didn't need sleep like they did, so he walked the perimeter. What he saw surprised him. Despite their exhaustion, Humans maintained strict watch routines. Guards changed every 4 hours exactly. They had backup watchers for their watchers. When one soldier started to doze, another would tap them awake. He found Sergeant Maria Chen at Observation Post 7. She was a small woman, even by human standards, but something in her eyes made Zek Theta uncomfortable. She had been awake for 36 hours straight, according to the duty roster. "Can't sleep," she told him when he asked why she didn't rest. "Every time I close my eyes, I see the last Kelmar raid. They got within 50 meters of our medical tent. We've got wounded in there who can't defend themselves. Your replacement will watch," Theta suggested. Chen shook her head. "My replacement is Thompson." "Good kid, but he's only been here 2 weeks. Doesn't know the patterns yet. The way the shadows move when Kelmar scouts are probing. The sound their armor makes against the rocks. I'll sleep when I'm dead." Theta made notes in his mental log. Humans formed emotional attachments that overrode biological needs. Weakness or strength? He couldn't tell yet. On his 5th day, he observed something else strange. The humans had rituals around their rest periods. They would gather in small groups before sleep, talking quietly, sharing stories about home. Private Jackson, barely old enough to be called adult by human standards, showed pictures of something called a dog to anyone who would look. "When I get home," Jackson said, "first thing I'm doing is taking Bear for a walk. Then I'm going to sleep for a week." The others laughed. They always talked about sleep like it was a reward, something precious stolen from them. Yet when the alarms rang at 300, every single human was combat ready within 2 minutes. They moved like machines, but machines with souls that Zek Theta couldn't quite understand. By the end of his first week, Zek Theta had filled several reports. Human weapons were a mix of projectile and energy-based, nothing special. Their vehicles were slow but reliable. Their base defenses were basic but well-planned. By all logical measures, they should have been evacuated already. But they stayed. They stayed and watched and waited. "Why don't you request reinforcements?" Zek Theta asked Captain Williams one evening. Williams was cleaning her weapon, a ritual human soldiers seemed to find calming. "Command says we hold, so we hold. Besides, the 437th has never retreated from a position. Not in our entire history. We were at Mars during the Colonial War, at Alpha Centauri during the first expansion. We hold, even if it means death." Williams looked up at him. For a moment, Zek Theta thought his biomasker had failed, that she could see through his disguise. But she just smiled, a tired expression that didn't reach her eyes. "Especially then, Colonel. The civilians in the settlements behind us don't have military transports. They've got families, children. Every day we hold is another day of evacuations. Every hour we buy is measured in lives saved." That night, Zek Theta stood on the base's highest point, looking out at the darkness. Somewhere out there, the Kelmar were preparing. Their warriors didn't need sleep like humans did. They were stronger, faster, better armed. Logic said the humans would fall within days. But as he watched the tired sentries walk their routes, saw the mechanics working through the night to repair vehicles, observed the medics preparing supplies they hoped not to need, Zek Theta felt something he hadn't experienced in his 50 cycles of service: uncertainty. His mission was simple: observe and report. But these humans, with their need for sleep and their fragile bodies and their outdated equipment, were doing something that didn't fit his models. They were choosing to stay when they should run. They were fighting exhaustion as much as any enemy, and they were still standing. The attack came at dawn on Zek Theta's 18th day at Firebase Echo. He was observing the morning shift change when the ground sensors went crazy. Every alarm in the base screamed at once, "Contact! Contact!" The voice over the intercom belonged to Private Jackson, who had been on watch. "Multiple hostiles, approaching from grid reference 27 Alpha. Oh God, there's hundreds of them." Zek Theta moved to the command center where Captain Williams was already studying the tactical display. Red dots swarmed across the screen like angry insects. He counted quickly. At least 1,000 Kelmar warriors, maybe more. They outnumbered the humans 5 to 1. "All units to defensive positions," Williams said calmly into her headset. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." The base erupted into controlled chaos. Soldiers who had been sleeping 30 seconds ago were now running to their positions, weapons in hand. Zek Theta followed Williams to the front observation post. What he saw made his scales try to change color beneath the biomasker. The Kelmar were terrifying in person. 9 feet tall, covered in natural armor that looked like overlapping stone plates. Each warrior carried weapons that could punch through vehicle armor. They moved in perfect formation, their war chant echoing across the red desert. "Well," William said quietly, "they brought the whole family reunion." Sergeant Chen appeared beside them, her rifle already aimed. "Captain, they're going to hit the eastern wall hardest." "That's our weakest point, I know," Williams replied. "Take your squad and reinforce." "Hold as long as you can." Chen nodded and ran off. Zektheta noticed she had been awake for at least 48 hours. Her hands shook slightly from exhaustion and too much caffeine, but her eyes were sharp. The first wave hit like a hammer against glass. Kelmar warriors charged through the humans' defensive fire, their armor absorbing shots that would have killed most species. The humans fought back with everything they had. Machine guns rattled, missiles screamed through the air, and the sharp crack of rifles never stopped, but they were being pushed back. Zektheta watched from the command post, documenting everything. By all calculations, the base should fall within an hour. The Kelmar had broken through the outer defenses in 3 places. Human casualties were mounting. The medical tent was overflowing. Then he saw something that made him stop taking notes. Sergeant Chen's position at the eastern wall had been overrun. Her squad was down to 3 soldiers. She should have retreated. Instead, she did something insane. She grabbed a damaged exosuit, a powered armor frame with half its systems offline, and strapped herself in. "Chen, fall back," Williams ordered over the radio. "Negative, Captain. If they break through here, they'll hit the medical tent." "I'm holding." What followed was impossible. Chen held that breach alone for 20 minutes. The exosuit's left arm didn't work, so she propped her rifle on it and fired with her right. When the rifle ran dry, she used it as a club. When a Kelmar warrior got too close, she detonated a grenade at her own feet, trusting the damaged suit to protect her. She was beyond exhaustion. Zektheta could see her face through his magnification device. Blood ran from her nose. Her eyes were unfocused. She was running on nothing but determination. But she held. Meanwhile, the medic, Thompson, was doing something equally insane. The medical tent had taken a direct hit. Instead of evacuating, he continued surgery on wounded soldiers while the battle raged around him. Kelmar warriors were less than 50 meters away, but Thompson kept working, humming something under his breath. "What is that sound?" Zektheta asked a nearby soldier. "Amazing grace," the soldier replied while reloading. "Thompson always hums it when things get bad. Says it keeps his hands steady." The battle had been raging for 6 hours, then 12, then 24. The Kelmar kept coming in waves, but the humans wouldn't break. Zektheta saw soldiers sleeping, standing up during 30-second lulls, then snapping awake to fight. He saw mechanics fixing vehicles while under fire, working by touch because they were too tired to focus their eyes. Captain Williams hadn't left the command post in 36 hours. She was coordinating the defense on stimulants and sheer willpower. When Zektheta suggested she rest, she laughed. "Rest? Colonel, I'll rest when these bastards are off my planet." By the 3rd day, something strange was happening. The humans were getting stronger, not weaker. They had passed through exhaustion into something else, something Zektheta had no word for. They fought like machines, but machines that could adapt, think, and refuse to stop. Private Jackson had been at his sniper position for 72 hours straight. Zektheta climbed up to observe him. The young soldier's eyes were red. His hands shook between shots, but he hadn't missed once in the last 6 hours. "How are you still functioning?" Zektheta asked. Jackson took another shot, dropped another Kelmar warrior. "Don't know, sir. Everything's kind of fuzzy, but also really clear, you know? Like I'm watching myself from outside. Plus, if I leave, who covers this approach? My squad needs me here," that phrase again. My squad needs me. Zektheta heard it everywhere. Soldiers who should have collapsed stayed standing because their squad needed them. Mechanics who hadn't slept in days kept working because their squad needed vehicles. Cooks who could barely stand kept making food because their squad needed to eat. On the 4th day, the Kelmar seemed confused. Their warriors needed rest too, but every time they pulled back to rotate fresh troops, the humans were still there. Still fighting, still holding. Zektheta overheard a Kelmar transmission they had intercepted. "The humans are broken. They must be. No species can fight for this long without rest." But they weren't broken. They were something else. On the 5th day it happened. The Kelmar retreat. Not a tactical withdrawal, but a full retreat. They left their dead, their damaged equipment, everything. They ran from 200 exhausted humans who could barely stand. The base erupted in celebration for exactly 10 seconds. Then soldiers started collapsing. The adrenaline that had kept them going was gone. Medics ran from person to person, checking vitals, distributing water. Zekitheta found Sergeant Chen sitting against a wall. The exosuit lay in pieces around her. She had been awake for 96 hours. Her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't hold a water bottle. "Why?" he asked her. "Why didn't you retreat?" Chen looked up at him with eyes that had seen too much. "Those wounded soldiers in the medical tent? Half of them are kids. 18, 19 years old. They joined up to protect humanity. Least I could do was protect them." Captain Williams finally allowed herself to sit down. She had been standing for 5 days. "Get me casualty reports," she ordered, then immediately fell asleep in her chair. Her staff worked around her, careful not to wake her. The numbers were impossible. 37 dead, 60 wounded out of 200. They had faced a force 5 times their size and won, not through superior technology or tactics, but through something Zekitheta couldn't quantify. That night, for the first time in his life, Zekitheta couldn't enter his rest stasis. Every time he tried, he saw Chen holding that line. Jackson calling out targets while hallucinating from exhaustion. Thompson performing surgery while the world exploded around him. He walked through the base instead. Half the soldiers were finally sleeping, but the other half were on watch. They had just fought for 5 days straight, and they were still watching, still ready. He found Private Jackson cleaning his rifle. The young man's hands moved automatically, muscle memory taking over where consciousness failed. "You should sleep," Zekitheta said. "Can't, sir. Every time I close my eyes, I see Kelmar warriors coming over that ridge. Besides, someone needs to be ready. They might come back." "You've been awake for 5 days," Jackson smiled, a broken expression. "Yeah, but we won, didn't we? We held. The 437th always holds." Zekitheta returned to his quarters and tried to write his report. How could he explain this to the council? That humans had weaponized exhaustion? That they fought better when they should have collapsed? That their emotional connections to each other overrode every biological imperative? He had observed 17 different species at war. None of them were like this. None of them turned suffering into strength. As dawn broke on the 6th day, Zekitheta stood on the observation tower. The Kelmar camp in the distance was abandoned. They had run from a species that needed sleep, that had fragile bodies, that used outdated technology. They had run from humans, and Zekitheta was beginning to understand why. Zekitheta couldn't stop studying them. After the battle, he had gained access to the human military database. Captain Williams, impressed by his composure during the fighting, had given him full clearance. She didn't know that his composure came from shock, not bravery. He sat in the base's small library, reading file after file. Human military history was insane. They had been killing each other for thousands of years before they even reached space. Every generation had its wars. They had turned warfare into an art form, then a science, then something beyond both. But it was the details that disturbed him most. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. Before they had tools, before they had language, they would chase prey for days. The prey would run, fast and strong, but humans would just keep coming. Walking, jogging, never stopping. The prey would collapse from exhaustion, and humans would still be there, ready to strike. They never lost that ability. They just turned it inward, against their own limits. "Reading up on our history?" Zekitheta looked up. Private Jackson stood there with 2 cups of coffee. The young soldier looked better after 3 days of recovery, though dark circles still marked his eyes. "Your species has an unusual relationship with warfare," Zekitheta said carefully. Jackson laughed and sat down. "That's one way to put it. My grandmother used to say humans are too stubborn to know when we're beaten. She fought in the Mars Rebellion, held out in a cave for 3 weeks with no food, just recycled water and spite. How did she survive? She didn't want to give the enemy the satisfaction." Jackson sipped his coffee. "That's the thing about humans, Colonel. We're not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest, but we're definitely the most stubborn." Zekitheta pulled up another file. The Battle of Thermopylae. 300 humans held off thousands. The Siege of Stalingrad. Humans eating leather and glue to survive while fighting in -40 degrees. The Kokoda Trail. Soldiers fighting while dying of disease, starvation, and exhaustion. Every story was the same. Humans pushed beyond breaking, then kept going. "Can I ask you something?" Jackson said. During the battle, when I was up in that sniper nest, I started seeing things. Dead buddies from basic training. My dog from back home. My mom making breakfast. But I could still shoot. Still fight. How is that possible? Zek Theta didn't have an answer. In his species, hallucinations meant system failure. Time for emergency rest stasis. In humans, it was just Tuesday. He found more files. Studies on human military units. The concept of unit cohesion appeared again and again. Humans formed bonds in combat that were stronger than family, stronger than logic. They would die for each other without hesitation. More importantly, they would suffer for each other endlessly. One study called it tactical love. The researcher argued that humans had weaponized their pack bonding instinct. In combat, they didn't fight for countries or causes. They fought for the person next to them. Zek Theta thought about Sergeant Chen holding that breach. She wasn't protecting the base. She was protecting the wounded soldiers in the medical tent. Thompson wasn't just doing surgery. He was saving his friends. That night he found Chen in the gym, pushing weights despite doctor's orders to rest. Her body was covered in healing bruises from the exosuit battle. "You should be recovering," Zek Theta observed. "I am recovering. This is how I do it." She set down the weights, breathing hard. "If I stop moving, I start thinking. If I start thinking, I remember how close we came to losing people. Better to keep moving. The psychological profiles I've read suggest humans need time to process trauma." Chen laughed, bitter and sharp. "We don't get that luxury out here." "Process trauma? Colonel, we are trauma. Every human soldier is a walking collection of things that should have killed them. We just keep adding to the pile." She was right. Zek Theta had been reading psychological evaluations. Every soldier in the 437th had enough accumulated stress to break most species. But they used dark humor, intense bonds, and shared suffering to transform that trauma into strength. He discovered something called gallows humor. Humans joked about death constantly. They named their weapons. They had a running bet on who would die first. They laughed at things that should have terrified them. "Why do you joke about death?" he asked a group of soldiers playing cards. "Because if you don't laugh, you cry," one replied. "And crying fogs up your helmet." They all laughed. Zek Theta didn't understand how that was funny. Days turned into weeks. He watched the humans train. Even their training was insane. They would deprive themselves of sleep on purpose. Run until they vomited, then run more. Practice fighting while exhausted, while hungry, while hurt. "We train harder than we fight," Captain Williams explained. "That way, when real combat comes, it feels easy by comparison. You torture yourselves to prepare for torture. We prepare ourselves for reality. The enemy won't care if we're tired or hungry or hurt, so we learn to not care either." Zek Theta observed a training exercise. Squad leaders would randomly wake their soldiers at 200, order them into full gear, and make them run combat drills. The soldiers hated it, cursed constantly, but they did it, and they got faster each time. One night he couldn't stand it anymore. He found the base chaplain, a quiet man named Father Martinez, who seemed to be the unofficial therapist for the regiment. "How do you maintain sanity?" Zek Theta asked. "Your species pushes itself beyond all reasonable limits. How do you not break?" Martinez smiled. "We do break, Colonel. All the time. But we've learned that broken doesn't mean beaten. You can function while broken. You can fight while broken. Sometimes being broken makes you harder to predict, harder to stop. That makes no sense. Have you ever heard of the phrase running on empty? It means continuing when you have nothing left. Humans are experts at running on empty. We've turned it into our primary survival strategy." Zek Theta reviewed his notes. "Humans slept only when safe, but they never felt truly safe, so they never truly rested. They existed in a constant state of readiness that would have killed his species within days." He studied Private Jackson more closely. The young soldier slept 4 hours a night maximum, always with his rifle within reach. He woke at every strange sound. He could go from deep sleep to combat ready in seconds. "Don't you want to rest?" Zek Theta asked him one day. "Every damn day," Jackson replied. "But then I think about what happens if I'm resting when the attack comes. Who covers my sector? Who protects my squad?" So I grab another coffee and keep going. The revelation hit Zek Theta suddenly one night as he watched the sentries. Humans hadn't conquered sleep. They had conquered the need for peace. They had evolved to function in a state of constant stress that would destroy other species. Their entire military doctrine was built on this. They called it Embrace the Suck. Accept that everything would be terrible, then function anyway. They had motivational phrases like sleep when you're dead and I'll rest when I'm done that were actually serious philosophical positions. He found a manual on something called combat meditation. Humans had learned to achieve rest-like states while remaining alert. They could lower their heart rate while keeping their eyes open. They could enter partial sleep while still responding to stimuli. They had turned consciousness itself into a weapon. Zeka Theta felt his own rest stasis slipping away. He should have entered the state 3 times by now, but every time he tried, he thought about the humans. Still watching, still ready, still suffering and joking about it. He found himself drinking coffee, the bitter human stimulant. It didn't affect his biology much, but the ritual of it, the joining in their constant search for alertness, made him feel like he understood them better. 1 month after the battle, an intelligence update came through. The Kelmar were massing for another attack. 10,000 warriors this time. Captain Williams called a meeting. 200 humans sat in the briefing room, all of them scarred from the last battle. They're coming back, she said simply, with 50 times our number. Command says evacuation is authorized. The room was quiet. Then Sergeant Chen spoke up. The civilian settlements aren't fully evacuated yet. Need another week at least, Williams nodded. Then we hold for another week. No one protested. No one pointed out the impossibility. They just started planning how to fight 10,000 with 200. Zeka Theta wanted to scream at them. Run. Save yourselves. No one would blame you, but he already knew they wouldn't. Because running would mean letting their squad down. And humans would rather die than let their squad down. That night, unable to achieve rest stasis again, Zeka Theta stood with the sentries. He wasn't tired in the human sense, but something in his mind felt strained, stretched, unable to shut down. Can't sleep, Colonel? Private Jackson asked. Something like that. Welcome to the club. We've got coffee and bad jokes. Zeka Theta looked at the young human, 19 years old. Should have been thinking about education, relationships, future. Instead, preparing to die holding a position that couldn't be held. Are you afraid? Zeka Theta asked, terrified. But fear keeps you sharp, keeps you ready. My drill sergeant used to say fear is just your body's way of saying pay attention. So I pay attention. The humans were preparing for the impossible fight with the same exhausted determination as always. Checking weapons, setting explosives, writing letters home they hoped someone else wouldn't have to send. The Kelmar fleet appeared in orbit 3 days later. 20 ships, each carrying 500 warriors. They didn't just want to take the base. They wanted to make an example. The orbital bombardment started at noon. Plasma rounds fell like rain, turning the desert to glass. The humans huddled in their reinforced bunkers, waiting. Every impact shook dust from the ceiling. Every near miss made the lights flicker. Zeka Theta watched Captain Williams study the tactical display. The Kelmar were targeting civilian settlements now. Buildings full of families who hadn't evacuated yet disappeared in flashes of light. Those bastards, Williams said quietly. Then louder to her communications officer, get me command. The conversation was short. Zeka Theta could only hear Williams's side. Yes, sir. I understand. No, sir. We're not requesting evacuation. We're requesting permission to engage. Yes, sir, I know the numbers. My people know what they're signing up for. She hung up and turned to face her soldiers. Everyone had gathered in the command bunker, all 200 of them. Command says the cavalry isn't coming. Earliest reinforcements are 2 weeks out. The communications array on Hill 47 could call for emergency jump-capable ships. Cut that to 3 days. But Hill 47 is behind enemy lines now. Nobody spoke. Everyone understood. Get to the array or the civilians die. I won't order anyone on this, Williams continued. This is volunteer only. We need to hold the base and take the array. That means splitting our forces. That means we're all going to die, Sergeant Chen interrupted. We get it, Captain. When do we leave? Every hand in the room went up. Every single one. Williams nodded, her eyes bright with something that might have been tears. All right then. Chen, take half. Get to that array. We'll make noise here, keep them busy. The plan was insanity. 100 soldiers holding the base against 10,000. 100 more trying to fight through enemy lines to reach a communications array 20 kilometers away. Zeka Theta was assigned to Chen's group. They left at midnight, moving through the bombardment. The Kelmar had landed their ground forces but were waiting for dawn to attack. Humans had better night vision technology, one of their few advantages. They moved in silence, exhausted soldiers who hadn't properly slept in weeks, carrying weapons and explosives that would have strained fresh troops. Zek Theta watched Private Jackson struggle with his pack. The young man hadn't slept in 48 hours preparing for this mission. "I can carry some of that," Zek Theta offered. "I'm good, sir. Save your strength. We'll need it." 6 kilometers out, they hit the first Kelmar patrol. 30 warriors versus 100 exhausted humans. It should have been even. It wasn't. The humans fought like demons. They used the darkness, the terrain, their complete disregard for their own safety. Chen rigged herself with explosives and charged directly at the Kelmar line. When they focused on her, the others flanked. "She's insane," Zekatheta said to Jackson. "No, sir. She's just done this before. 3 times, actually. She always survives somehow. We call her the cockroach. Too stubborn to die." They kept moving. More patrols. More desperate fights. By dawn, they had lost 20 soldiers and were still 10 kilometers from the array. That's when the orbital bombardment focused on them. "They know where we're going," Chen said, blood running from a cut on her forehead. "Williams can't keep them distracted anymore." Zek Theta checked his communication device. The base was under full assault. The 100 soldiers there were somehow still fighting, but the walls were breached in a dozen places. "We need to move faster," Chen decided. "Leave the wounded." "No." The voice belonged to Thompson, the medic. Half his face was burned from a plasma near miss. "We don't leave anyone." "Thompson, we don't have time." "Then we make time." Johnson Smith helped me with the stretchers. "We all make it or none of us do." They carried their wounded. It slowed them down. It made them easier targets. It was tactically stupid. It was human. 8 kilometers from the array, they were surrounded. 500 Kelmar warriors in a perfect circle. Chen looked around, calculating odds that didn't exist. "Well," she said, "this is going to suck." She turned to her soldiers. These exhausted, broken, beautiful humans who had followed her into hell. "Listen up. The array is 8 clicks that way. We need 1 person to make it, just 1. Rest of us are going to open a hole. Johnson, Jackson, Martinez, you're our runners. When you see daylight, you sprint and don't look back." "Sarge," Jackson started. "That's an order, Private. The rest of us, we're going to remind these bastards why humans are the scariest things in the galaxy. Fix bayonets." Zek Theta watched in horror as the humans attached knives to their rifles. "Primitive weapons against advanced armor. This is suicide," he said. Chen grinned, wild and terrible. "No, sir. Suicide is when you kill yourself. This is something else. This is making them pay for every inch." The charge was impossible. Humans with knives against plasma weapons and armor. But they didn't charge to win. They charged to create chaos. Chen detonated her explosives while grappling with a Kelmar warrior. The blast tore a hole in their line. Thompson, the medic, threw himself on a plasma grenade to protect his patients. A private Zekatheta had never learned the name of held 3 Kelmar warriors in place by refusing to let go, even as they tore him apart. Jackson and 2 others made it through the gap. They ran while their friends died behind them. Zekatheta ran with them. His job was to observe, but he found himself firing a human rifle trying to give them cover. His biomasker was failing from stress. Patches of his true form showed through. 4 kilometers from the array, Johnson took a plasma bolt to the spine. He crawled another 100 meters before stopping, still trying to move forward even as his body shut down. 2 kilometers. Martinez stepped on a mine. The explosion took his legs. He tied tourniquets on his own stumps and told Jackson to keep going. "I'll slow them down," he said, checking his rifle. "Got enough ammo for a few minutes. 1 kilometer. It was just Jackson and Zek Theta now. Behind them, the sound of fighting had stopped. Ahead, 300 Kelmar warriors guarded the array. Jackson was beyond exhaustion. He moved like a zombie, 1 foot in front of the other. Blood ran from his nose. His eyes couldn't focus. He had been awake for 4 days. "We can't fight 300, Zekatheta said. Jackson laughed, high and broken. "Don't need to fight them. Just need to get to the array. Send the signal. Then we can rest." He pulled out all his remaining explosives. Every grenade, every charge, everything he had. "You know what the funny thing is?" Jackson said, rigging the explosives to his chest. "I really did want to see my dog again. But he's a good boy. He'll understand." Jackson, "No," but the private was already running. Straight at the Kelmar line. They shot him 20 times 50. He kept running. They hit him with plasma that melted his armor. He kept running. He made it 15 meters past their line before detonating. The explosion carved a path. Not a big one, but enough. Zektheta ran through the smoke and bodies, his disguise completely failing now, his true form revealed. The Kelmar were too stunned to stop him. He reached the array. The controls were simple. He input the emergency code Williams had given him and sent the distress signal. Every jump-capable ship within 50 light-years would receive it. Help would come in days, not weeks. Then he turned to face the Kelmar warriors approaching him. He thought about running. His species was fast. He might escape. Instead, he picked up Jackson's rifle from where the private had dropped it. It had 3 rounds left. "I'm not even human," he said to himself. "Why am I doing this?" But he knew why. Because Jackson had run into certain death for this moment. Because Chen had blown herself up to create an opportunity. Because Thompson had died protecting wounded soldiers. Because 200 humans were dying at the base right now, holding out so civilians could escape. Because somewhere along the way, their insanity had infected him. He fired the 3 shots, then used the rifle as a club when they got close. A Vraxian fighting like a human, his species would never understand. The Kelmar captured him alive. They wanted to know what he was, this creature that looked like one thing but fought like another. They dragged him to an overlook where he could see the base burning in the distance. "Your humans are dead," the Kelmar commander said. "The base has fallen." But even as he said it, explosions bloomed across the base. The humans had rigged the entire complex with explosives. They were bringing it down on top of the Kelmar forces. "They're not my humans," Zektheta said. "But you're right about one thing. They're dead. They've been dead since this started. They just refuse to stop fighting." The commander hit him, breaking several of his facial bones. "They're insane." "Yes," Zektheta agreed, spitting blood. "Beautifully, terrifyingly insane." 3 days later, the emergency fleet arrived. Jump-capable warships appeared in orbit and immediately engaged the Kelmar fleet. Ground forces landed in drop pods, expecting to find graves. Instead, they found 28 humans still alive in the ruins of Firebase Echo. They had held out in the bunker system, rigging traps, fighting in the dark, eating stimulant packs, and drinking recycled water. Captain Williams had lost an arm. Sergeant Chen had somehow survived her explosion with 3rd-degree burns over half her body. They were still fighting when the rescue teams found them. "Took you long enough," Williams said before passing out. The medical ship's quiet halls felt wrong after months of human chaos. Zektheta lay in a bed designed for his species, scales slowly healing from the abuse they had taken. His biomasker had been removed, destroyed beyond repair. For the first time in months, he looked like himself again, but he didn't feel like himself. Director Voss stood beside his bed reading from a data pad. "Your reports have caused significant discussion in the Council. Some members believe you've exaggerated. No species could function as you describe." "I haven't exaggerated anything," Zektheta said. His voice was rough. The humans had given him coffee during his recovery, and now water tasted wrong without bitterness. "If anything, I've understated it. You claim humans weaponized exhaustion, that they fight better when broken. This goes against every model of combat psychology we have." Zektheta laughed, a sharp sound he had learned from Chen. "Your models assume species want to preserve themselves. Humans preserve each other. Individual survival is secondary." Voss's scales shifted to show discomfort. "The Council is debating our response. Some want to ally with humanity immediately. Others suggest preventive action." "You mean attack them before they become a threat?" "The thought has been discussed." Zektheta tried to sit up, his body protesting. "Don't, Director, please. You didn't see what I saw. You attack humanity and they won't just fight back. They'll turn it into something personal. Every human will know someone who died. Every human will have a reason to never stop. They're one species on a handful of worlds. We are thousands of species across the galaxy, and they'll fight you all, not to win. To make sure you never forget the cost of attacking them." Voss set down the data pad. "You've changed, Zektheta. 3 months ago you were our best observer, analytical, detached. Now you sound like you admire them." "I'm terrified of them," Zektheta corrected. "But yes, I admire them too. They took everything I understood about warfare and broke it. Do you know what Chen said to me when I visited her in recovery?" "What?" She said, "Next time we'll be ready." This was just the warm-up. The warm-up, Director. Fighting 5,000 Kelmar with 200 soldiers was practice to her. A soft knock at the door interrupted them. A human nurse entered, carrying a tray. Zektheta recognized the smell immediately. Coffee. Thought you might want this, she said with a smile. Captain Williams said you developed a taste for it. She left the cup and departed. Voss stared at it like it was a weapon. You drink their stimulants now? I drink it because I can't sleep, Zekitheta admitted. Haven't achieved proper rest stasis in 2 months. Every time I try, I see them. Still fighting, still dying, still refusing to stop. This is why we need your full report. The council must understand what we're dealing with. Zekitheta sipped the coffee. It was exactly how Jackson used to make it. Too strong, too hot, perfect for staying awake. Fine. Recording active? When Voss nodded, Zekitheta began. Humanity's greatest weapon is not their technology, though they adapt and innovate under pressure in ways that seem impossible. It's not their physical capabilities, though they can function without rest longer than any species we've cataloged. It's not even their tactics, though they'll use absolutely anything to win. Their greatest weapon is their capacity for shared suffering. They bond through trauma. They grow stronger through loss. When you kill one human, you don't remove an enemy. You create a martyrs whose memory will drive their squad to fight harder. I observed Private Jackson, 19 years old. He stayed awake for 96 hours during the first battle. When I asked why, he said, my squad needs me. Not his country, not his species. His squad, 10 people he had known for less than a year. When he died, he ran into 300 Kelmar warriors with explosives strapped to his chest. He did this after 4 days without sleep, hallucinating, barely able to walk. He did it because it would save civilian lives. He did it smiling. Humans have a saying, leave no one behind. They will risk 100 to save one. This seems inefficient until you understand what it creates. Every human soldier knows, absolutely knows, that their squad will come for them. Dead or alive, they will come. This certainty allows them to take insane risks, hold impossible positions, fight when logic says surrender, because they know their suffering has meaning. Their sacrifice will be honored. Their squad will remember. During my observation, I watched humans develop new combat techniques in real time. Exhausted soldiers who could barely stand created tactical innovations that our best military minds would need years to develop. Necessity drove evolution at a pace that shouldn't be possible. But here's what truly terrifies me, Director. They enjoy it. Not the death, not the loss, but the challenge. The chance to prove that humans can endure anything. They tell stories about their worst battles like others tell stories about victories. They compare scars and traumas like trophies. Sergeant Chen has a burn scar that covers half her body. She shows it off. Calls it her Kelmar tattoo. She's proud of it. Proud that she survived something that should have killed her. They have a phrase. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Most species would say what doesn't kill you leaves you weakened, traumatized, diminished. Humans literally get stronger from surviving trauma. They use it as fuel. If the Council is considering military action against humanity, I have one piece of advice. Don't. You'll win the first battles. Your technology is superior, your numbers greater. But humans don't need to win battles. They just need to survive them, and each survival makes them harder to kill next time. They'll study every defeat, honor every loss, learn from every mistake, and they'll keep coming. Not for weeks or months, but for generations. Human children will grow up knowing your species killed their parents. They'll join the military specifically to fight you. The war will become part of their cultural identity. You'll turn them into the perfect enemy, one that gets stronger from conflict, bonds through shared suffering, and passes hatred down like a genetic trait. Zekitheta paused, taking another sip of coffee. There's something else. Something that wasn't in my official reports. The humans infected me with their madness. I haven't slept properly since I met them. I drink their stimulants. I understand their jokes about death. I've even caught myself using their phrases. Yesterday, a doctor told me I needed rest. I said, I'll rest when I'm done. I said it automatically without thinking. That's not a Vraxian response. That's human thinking. And if they could do that to me in 3 months, imagine what they could do to the galaxy given time. My recommendation to the Council is simple. Alliance. Immediately. Not because we need their weapons or territory, but because we need them to fight beside us, not against us. Whatever enemy the galaxy faces next, I want humans on our side, because they'll turn that enemy's strength into weakness, their victories into defeats, and they'll do it exhausted, injured, outnumbered, and complaining about the coffee the entire time. Voss was quiet for a long moment after Zekitheta finished. His scales had shifted through multiple colors during the report. showing emotion Zeka had never seen from his director before. "This will change everything," Voss finally said. "It already has. 3 species have opened alliance talks with Earth since the Battle of Kepler 442b. The Kelmar have recalled all forces from human space. Word spreads, Director. The galaxy is learning what humans are capable of." Another knock at the door. This time Captain Williams entered. Her left arm was cybernetic now. Military-grade replacement for the one she lost. She moved with the same tired determination Zeka had memorized. "Colonel Sanderson," she said, using his cover name with a slight smile. "Or should I say Commander Zeka? Heard you were awake, Captain. You should be recovering." "I am. Walking is recovery. Besides, wanted to thank you. That signal you sent saved a lot of lives. Jackson sent it. I just finished what he started." Williams nodded slowly. "He was a good kid. They're putting his name on a scholarship program. Full ride to university for war orphans. He would have liked that." She pulled something from her pocket. A small metal pin, nothing fancy. 2 crossed rifles over a star. The 437th unit insignia. "You earned it. Don't care if you're not human. You held the line when it mattered." Zeka took the pin with a hand that shook slightly. Not from injury, but from something else. Something human. "I didn't deserve this. I was just an observer. You observed us so well you became one of us. That's what humans do, Commander. We get under your skin, make you care despite yourself. Before you know it, you're fighting battles that aren't yours because the person next to you needs help." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Command wanted me to tell you something. If your council decides to attack humanity, we want you to know you'll always have a place with us. The 437th could use someone who understands both sides. Think about it." After she left, Voss stared at the pin in Zeka's hand. "They're recruiting you. After everything, they want you to join them. That's what humans do. They take enemies and turn them into allies. Take observers and turn them into soldiers. Take the impossible and turn it into Tuesday's mission." Zeka attached the pin to his medical gown. It looked absurd. Human military insignia on Vraxian medical clothing. But it felt right. "My final intelligence assessment, Director. Don't make enemies of humans.